Welcome to the Arthur Askey Show. Well, you've seen some wonderful shows on this channel, Playmates, but tonight you're going to see the most wonderful show of them all. So here and now, the boy of very eyes. Big-hearted Arthur, they call me. Big-hearted Arthur, that's me. Clean if I'm not very clever, but only 'cause I've got to be.
Old man Askey, that old man Askey, though somewhat dated, he feels elated, rejuvenated, he still keeps rolling along.
I don't know whether you know, but we Askeys are a very, very musical family. My great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was the original crooner with Oliver Cromwell's Hot Rhythm Boys.
He don't get younger, but don't feel older. The silver threads now among the golder, but old man Askey, he still keeps rolling along.
Who are you going to take?
I'm going to take Marcia.
Yes, but she can't dance, can she?
No, she can't dance, but all can that baby sit out.
Why should he still sweat and strain, frequently cracking his gags in vain? Tell that joke, get no laugh, not a blinking soul wants an autograph.
Good morning, we've come for the orgy.
Eh?
The orgy?
The orgy?
We're not too late, are we?
We don't have orgies here. We have a cup of cocoa, but... Hey, put those... Here, put them on.
Have we come to the wrong house?
Have you what?
Come to the wrong house?
You've come at the wrong time. Go on, get out of here. Yes, get out of here. The orgy. No wonder Uncle Jeremiah died young.
But old man Askey, he still keeps rolling along.
He was a bubbly, lively man, and I never saw him give a below-par performance. It was always flat out.
I never really thought of Arthur as being old, because he was so sprightly, he was so happy, and so... He danced about, you know, all the time on stage, that little sort of hands together, the little the little laugh he used to give all the time. And
He was always smiling, and he was a funny man. People always say to you, is he as funny off as he is on? Well, I think Arthur was, actually.
If I modelled myself on anyone, it would have been Arthur Askey. When you watched Arthur work, it was like seeing a firework display go off. Shoo! There was so much energy, there was so much life, there was so much personality. He really was a Mr. Sunshine.
There is a man who has been entertaining us for the past 50 years, whether we wanted him to or not. A man, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, and if he does, him. A man old enough to be Ernie's father. Now, looking at their sizes, very probably is.
How do you like it so far? What a load of rubbish.
I remember Arthur when he first worked for ATV television. He went to see Sir Lou Grade. Of course, he wasn't Sir Lou then, he was just plain ordinary or Royal Highness. He went to see Lou, and Arthur on that particular day was wearing a brown suit, and Lou picked him up, put him in his mouth, and lit him.
And what was remarkable about Arthur Askey, he was not only a comedian on stage, but he was a comedian off stage, non-stop. He never stopped cracking gags.
Clever, that smoke effect, isn't it? We've got Lou and Leslie under there with their cigars, glowing like hell, really.
We really became very close. We wouldn't go without them to the south of France. There was one wonderful occasion when we were driving the car and we passed a huge chateau. And he said, "Oh, my God, I'm sorry. I sold it last week. I wish I'd kept it." And he was funny non-stop. I mean, everybody waited for Arthur Askey and I to come out on the beach. It was like we were the centerpiece of a show. I was the straight man and he was the comedy man.
Oh, happy days.
I don't think Arthur Askey was ever booked for a show or a pantomime or a play. He was booked to be let loose on an audience.
Keep with the party. I've more trouble with this party than Gateskill's got with his, you know. Something else. Oh, this is the audience, ladies and gentlemen. They're all in three. Little do they know there'll be a silver collection at the end. Oh, how are you, Your Worship? The Mayor of Hammersmith. How are you, sir? Nice to see you. The Mayor of Hammersmith, ladies and gentlemen. You're all right. Nice to see you. How's the nest? All right? Sure. Mayor's nest. I thought they lovely shows.
He didn't actually even tell the jokes. He just used to say the tagline of the jokes, and the audience used to laugh. You know, the perfect example was the old one, you know, bloke goes into a chemist's and said, have you got any talcum powder? You know, the chemist said, certainly, sir, walk this way. And he'd do a funny walk away. And he'd say, well, if I could walk like that, I wouldn't need the talcum powder. That was the gag. Now, Arthur used to do it in the show, and he would just do a funny walk and say,
if I could walk this way, I wouldn't need the talcum. I know the gag.
He made you realise that the fact you were laughing at him was absurd. He was a silly little man, and we're all laughing, and you're silly for laughing. And that was part of the double whammy that he used on an audience. So he got away with murder that way.
You heard about the fellow who was walking along the front of Brighton, and he heard somebody shouting, get your lovely seagulls here. Only 5 shillings each the seagull. Make a lovely present for the kiddie-winkies. 5 shillings the seagull. So this fellow thought, well, I might buy one for the kids, a little present, you know. So he went across to this man, he gave him 5 bob, and the fellow says, thanks, Gov. He said, all right, well, where's my seagull? He said, well, that's yours, the second on the right up there. I must tell that badly, I don't know. But anyway.
The great trick he had was you'd do a joke, and the audience either laughs or doesn't laugh, and then you mock it, constantly undermining what he was doing, but making it all the funnier.
Oh, there's a prop work. Look at that. Hey, first time. It's marvellous, eh? I thought I was back at the BBC. Here we are.
And I'm sure he must have had in his contract a clause which probably said, if I suddenly have an idea on stage that will make the audience and the cast laugh hysterically, I must be allowed to do it. And that's what he did.
Now it says 1 pint of curdled milk.
Curdled milk,
Curdled
eh?
milk, yes.
Well, there's a pint of milk here, but it isn't curdled.
Oh, well, how can we curdle it?
I've got an idea.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog. All right, that would curdle anything, wouldn't it, eh? There you are. All right, by golly. Oh,
yes.
We didn't have this in rehearsal. Look, it's the real stuff, isn't it, eh? Oh, they don't half-save this company, I'll tell you. Every prop's a surprise.
He was very incisive, yes, quite cynical sometimes, Arthur. Yes, he had a lovely cynical view of the world. And considering this lovely rainbow man, this lovely shining personality, this lovely, this little jester. Yes, but he could be quite, he could slip one in now and again that make
You know, next year they're doing The King and I here. They wanted me for it, with Dorothy Squires. Yeah. She refused to have her head shaved, so we won't. Anyway.
He's a typical Scouser, you see, to me. He's like every Scouser I work with or I've ever met. They never stop being comedians. They're just natural. They don't even think they're funny. They just are. They naturally got an amazing wit.
Whatever else you say about Liverpool, and they do, we are a city of optimists. If you see a fat man running down the road, little kids will shout after him, "Go ahead, mister, you're winning." You're winning. You're not losing. Not you silly old sausage, you know, and we hope you fall over. No, if you see somebody running, it's, "Go on, mister, you're winning." And Liverpool people are like that. We always have this great theme of hope. And Arthur Askey personified that.
And of course, I was born in 1900, and that was a very lucky year. There were some wonderful people born in 1900.
He was born in Liverpool, in Toxteth, and he found at school that he wasn't bullied if he could make the other kids laugh. So he started being funny at school, and then he'd go into all the school dramatics, and he joined the local drama group, and he just got such a love of it, and he started his own concert party. And then, of course, eventually he was asked to turn pro. So he chucked in his job in the tonsils and adenoids educational department of Liverpool, and went on down to London.
Oh, what a glorious thing to be a nice, obedient, busy, busy bee. To be a good bee, one must contrive, for bees in a beehive must be hive. But maybe I wouldn't be a bee. Bees are all right when alive, you see. When bees die, you really should see 'em pinned on a card in a bookie museum. Bzz, 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 honeybee, bzz, if you like, don't sting me. Bzz, 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 honeybee. I must buzz off.
And all of a sudden, the page of history turned. 1938, January the 5th, bandwagon.
Hello, everybody. This is the Askey Broadcasting Company. This morning we promised it, and tonight you're going to get it. A brand new, scintillating, epoch-making show. Ladies and gentlemen, Bandwagon. Ay-Thang-Yaw.
The BBC put their own publicity out and said I was the resident comedian. It was their idea. And I said, my idea is this. You've called me the resident comedian. If I am the resident comedian, I want to live on the premises.
Good heavens! Washing on the BBC. Who's responsible for this sacrilege?
Because the BBC in those days, was very, very autocratic, very, very dignified. I mean, he really did go out on a limb.
Don't be a silly little man. Come up on the roof and have your morning round.
At one time, I was so silly, I thought the show was just for me, and they were broadcasting it to me in my bedroom. I had this little American radio, very small, with an electric cord that plugged in, and which got hot. It must have had the resistor or whatever in the cord. And I used to wrap it round myself in bed. God knows why I didn't die. I should have died from some massive electric shock, because I used to suck it and listen to Bandwagon with Arthur and Richard Murdoch living on the top of Broadcasting House.
On your marks, set, go!
It was Louis the goat, who gave them milk, so it should have been Louisa the goat. Basil and Lucy were the pigeons, and Nausea Bagwash was the daughter of Mrs. Bagwash.
Mrs. Bagwash, who's she?
The woman who comes in to help us with the spring cleaning. Granted.
She's very quiet. It isn't the people who make the most noise who do the most work. Catchphrases, they come back. And there again, you see, on Bandwagon, Arthur Askey was doing exactly what he learned in Concert Party and what he would always do, taking the mickey out of the joke, so that he was first to mock himself before you could. You can't criticise a man who's just said, this is a lousy joke, and then tells it to you. You go, yeah, thank you, but I laughed. The moment you've laughed, the joke's not lousy anymore, but he can go on pretending it is. So they did Chestnut Corner.
Now, listen to me. Where do the motor horns come from?
China.
What part of China?
Hong Kong. Thanks, Dave and Joe. Now, where are we? Would you like to see a photograph of me taken when I was in hospital?
Rather.
Here you are, I'm in the end bed.
Yeah, but the end bed's empty.
Is it? I must have get out for a minute.
Who is that lady I saw you with last night?
That wasn't a lady, that was my nephew. He walks that way.
He was enormously popular in the Bandwagon days. There was an annual used to come out, Arthur Askey's annual, which came out at Christmas. And there were dolls and puppets made of him. I happen to have one here, folks. There he is. That's the lad. Ay-Thang-Yaw. That's the puppet. And this is the doll. And it's in pristine order, you see. How many kids can you say look after their toys like this? And it's... I think I should get it on the Antiques Roadshow, don't you?
You are a funny little man.
Bandwagon set an example for future shows that were to follow, because it did what the wireless is best at doing. That is, painting pictures. And in their case, they were rather silly little pictures. But then Arthur Askey was a silly little man.
What's the matter with you, you silly
Oh,
man?
I'm feeling very miserable. I'm in love. There you are, just as I thought. You laughed at me.
Yeah, well, why don't you propose
Well,
to the
that's
girl?
just it, old boy. I want to propose to the girl, and I don't know how to go about it.
But now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I want you to impersonate Nausea for a few moments, and I shall be you.
Oh, I see. I'm Nausea, and you're me.
That's right.
Do I look like that?
Now, I'm inside the boudoir.
I know.
This is what you've got to do. Oh, Nausea, do you know what I'm here for?
I've got a damn good idea.
Nausea, darling, I want to ask you a question.
Well, the answer's no.
I've had something
trembling on my lip for weeks.
Well, why don't you shave it off? It'll get in your cocoa. It's a private joke, eh?
I kneel before you. I am intoxicated by your beauty.
Oh, yes? Oh, what about it?
The perfume of your presence.
He thought that up himself.
Those beautiful eyes, those beautiful lips, those pearly white teeth. Nausea, darling. I've come to press my suit.
Mary, put the iron on. Am I going to do all that? Oh, I can't be bothered. I mean,
well, look.
Get fed up with a thing like that.
You must see if you've learnt anything.
I made it.
Now, this time, you're going to be yourself and I'm going to be Nausea.
I see. I'm me and you're Nausea.
That's right.
Get up in the bedroom.
The boudoir.
Now coming upstairs. Knock, knock.
Come in.
Don't be so anxious. Here I come. Oh, Nausea. I've got something hanging on my face.
Trembling on the lip.
Nausea, I'm drunk.
I am intoxicated by your beauty.
Nausea, you smell like a pheasant.
The perfume of your presence.
That beautiful eye.
Eyes.
I can only see one from here. You look like Charlie Cyclops. Those lovely lips, just like petals.
Ah, rose petals.
30 years in show business, get this one. No, bicycle petals. Nausea, I've come to iron my trousers.
No, I've been wasting my time.
And I've wasted mine. I really don't know what to do.
I'm fed up with your chatter.
I don't suppose it'll matter. I've been wasting my time on you.
Now, why do people who live on this earth lie abed snoring for all they are worth, when they might be getting some fun? If they do as I do, wake up with the sun, I'm up with the lark as soon as it's day. I tear off the bedclothes and throw them away before the day has really begun. I'm ready to say hello to the sun. I stretch out my arms, I try out my legs, I sample the coffee, the bacon and eggs. I'm way ahead of everyone. The first one to say hello to the sun, and I go.
And I just love that song. And, you know, I get up in the morning some mornings and, you know, some days, you know, work's too heavy on you. You just start singing that silly little song. Up in the morning, you just got to work and you feel absolutely bright.
Though I seldom think more than I ought, if I'm alone with a bottle of port, there's a different story to tell. Though I'm still quite early, I'm not very well.
You know, everybody always says, you know, George Formby won the war single-handed. Well, I think Arthur Askey was giving him a good help. Because, I mean, they must have, in the darkest hours, they must have been absolutely take you away from reality. I mean, that's what those films did.
I swing down the lane, I roll in the hay, I gather me rosebuds and throw them away. I sip the dew, it's excellent fun to drink while you say hello to the sun.
Everybody liked him. Men liked him, women liked him, children loved him. I remember seeing The Ghost Train, and I thought, this is the first English radio comedian I've seen who ever really mastered the art of movies.
Oh, go away!
It's almost as if television in the 50s was made for Arthur. If it was made for any comedians, it was made for Arthur Askey and Terry Thomas, who knew instinctively and immediately what to do with the camera. Treated as if it's a member of the family that's sitting up front in a summer show. He could interplay with people all around him, but this was all... He was like the comic aside was in the days of Shakespeare or any great comic tradition. The intimacy between the comedian and the audience, where you let them in on it. So he'd be playing with people who instinctively would not ever interfere with Arthur's technique and look at the camera themselves. But having people who would work with him solidly and reliably within the proscenium arch, within the fourth wall, every time Arthur turned to the camera, he was breaking that law. And we loved it at home.
Very good. Yes, I enjoyed that. He put that in himself. Hello, you switched from there to there quick, didn't you? I've got to watch you, Tesla. First time I've worked with him, you know. I've got all the others lined up. Now watch it, Tesla. Give me time. This business. I got a brother broke his neck doing that, you know.
Arthur was a bit of a pain because Arthur, enjoying the effect of the ad-lib on not just the audience, of course, but the studio crew, that Arthur was overrunning Arthur. I never did a show with and it didn't matter how many minutes you reduced the material to in order to allow spread for laughs, he still beat you.
If I'm overdoing it, I'm sorry, but concentrate. First spectacle, you get a bit excited, you know. Well, it's twice the money for half the rehearsal, you know. You go over and have a wish time if you'd rather, you know.
This is all fun. You know, there's a camera there, and there's a man operating it, and it was his aim in life to be funny about that camera and about that cameraman, and at the end of a show, if he hadn't got the cameraman creased once or twice, then he hadn't really succeeded.
And Arthur would do it with such skill and perfect timing, uncanny timing, even tricks using the camera frame. Remember how at the end of every Arthur Askey show, maybe you don't remember, but I do, and all of us of my age would, he would say his catchphrase, whatever he was going to wind up with, and then hold his nose as if he was going down under the water and slowly duck down.
But you know why I did that? Because I saw so many people on television saying, "Good night, everybody, good night," and then it would fix, because they didn't fade them out, you see, and they're stuck like that. Well, you couldn't do that and walk out of picture, so I got this idea of diving
out of camera range. And it was a simple trick, but it was delightful. He was inventing new techniques just for the television camera that we'd never seen before and haven't often seen since.
One sketch that we did, Arthur kept walking to the windows and getting things thrown at him, like water, and, you know, and then he would come back and there'd be a little bit more of the sketch, then back to the window and have something else thrown at him. And the last time, Arthur went to the window and they threw sand at him. And he came back, sort of walking backwards, and he turned round to face me, and the inside of his glasses were all sand.
Oh!
And that just finished me. I just looked at him and collapsed.
You know, Emily, standing there you look as pretty as a picture. Come here while I varnish you.
Oh.
Come on. Hey. You're Sabrina, aren't you?
Why, how did you guess?
Oh, I'd know you anywhere. You've got something that the others haven't got.
Sabrina was part of the show, and that one day we were there, say at 10 o'clock, and 10:30 came, you know, and sort of 11:15, and eventually Sabrina arrived, and she said something like, you know, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, I missed the bus, so I couldn't do this, that, and the other." And Arthur said, "Well," he said, "it's such a lovely day, I shouldn't have bothered coming at all if I were you."
Now, what would you like?
Oh, well, I'd like you to do something with my lips.
What do you suggest?
Oh, well, just a little freshening up. What is the matter?
I did share a car with Sabrina once, and I remember her saying to me, "Now, do you think I should go on with this sort of thing that I'm doing now, or should I concentrate on being an actress?" And I said, well, I should sort of go for it while you can, you know, and see what happens, sort of thing. She was a dear girl, actually, and I think Arthur was very fond of her, and she certainly made her mark.
Where's Sabrina now? Sabrina, well, she had to give up the business. Why? She got a slow puncture. She's married, and believe it or not, she's living in Hollywood. Married to a psychiatrist. Well, he was going to say feels the bumps.
No! He was never a stand-up comic. He was a personality and a character. Most of his big success, when he really hit it big live, was with a lot of Jack Hilton's musical shows, when his personality just came over the footlights and captivated everybody.
But she got to death or glory, knowing there are none to care. Just her elbows, yes, with whiskers on your chest. That's the life of the Legionnaire. It's a hell of a life in the Legion. When you're out in the desert, I mean. This story I'll tell you is clever. It's not only clever, it's clean. Our captain we hated like poison. He had a moustache like a bedsock. And what the men called him led me to believe that he had been born out of wedlock. He took us a route march and lost us. An obsolete map they had sold him. He said, listen, men, I don't know where to go, so every one of us told him. Now here I am back entertaining, singing songs ancient and new, striving and straining to get a good laugh out of boss-eyed palookas like you.
Everything he does seems natural. All his little poses, all his little sayings, his looks to the camera, it's almost totally underperformed.
It's like breathing out and breathing in with me. It's no effort at all. If I feel, after 2 heart attacks, that it was getting me down a bit, then I would have to really think about it.
I would say Arthur was the only British comic who did succeed beyond everyone's wildest expectations in every single medium he tackled. He managed to, he didn't even adapt, but his humour was relevant to everything. Musicals, farces, films, television, cabaret, radio, the lot. He made coming in through a door funny. He made Good Morning, he would make funny. His beautiful mover he was to watch.
I should have you dancing on air, but I'm not Freddie Astaire. I'm only me. I've had the misfortune to fall while I'm still no one at all. I'm only me. I don't know what Romeo knew, but still I know what to do. I'm only me.
We'll open some sardine.
Jolly good idea. Jolly good idea. Jolly good idea.
Find the lady.
That one.
No, this one.
You notice I don't wear any prop boobies, or and there's none inside here. Unlike most them, no jewellery. It's just Arthur Askey in a frock. I always say that.
But now does it be
When they're booking, that's right. Do you mind? If they're booking me, they book Arthur Askey, and they get Arthur Askey.
To me, he brought the quality into pantomime that he brought into everything he did, which was fun. He knew every gag that was possible to know in pantomime.
I'm staggered, you see. 100 groats, that's a lot of money, but I'll pay you. I won't argue with you. Here you are, 100 groats. 1, 2, how many miles have we come?
15.
15, 16, 17. How old are you?
23.
23, 24, 25. You may have seen this done before, but never better.
I appeared with Arthur in a pantomime at the London Palladium. He'd say, the reason why you're not getting a laugh on that line is because you're standing in the wrong place. And he said, if you turn slightly and move 2 feet towards me when you say that line, you'll get a titter. It won't be a guffaw. He said, but you get a titter. And sure enough, I tried it the next time, and I did. So obviously his mind wasn't just thinking about his performance, but the total picture of how he could improve getting laughs. For me, for somebody else even. Why should he bother about me? I'm just a novice rock and roll singer coming in. But he did care about his art form, and as I was coming to be part of his art form, he wanted me to be good at it too.
I had had a very, very bad year, and then eventually my agent got a phone call out of the blue and said, would Roy be interested in doing pantomime at Wimbledon? I said, would I? Only live down the road in Croydon. I said, not half. I don't even have to pay me fare out. You know, I can walk there. So I said, yes, I'd love to do it. And I found out eventually it was with Arthur Askey. And Arthur had found out that I was having a hard time. And he said to the people who put in the pantomime on, they asked him if he would do Wimbledon pantomime, and he said, yes, but I must do it with Roy Hudd. He said, we work marvellously well together in pantomime, and I must do it with Roy. I'd never met Arthur, I'd certainly never worked with him at all, but he'd heard I was having a hard time, and he got me into the pantomime at Wimbledon, which was really the start of everything sort of beginning to go right for me again after that. I've never forgotten that. I thought it was a terrific thing to do.
I'm not called big-hearted for nothing. I know your generosity is large. If you give me your £1/4 of butter, I let you have my 4 ounces of marge. I guess, master, you I'll bequeath. Mine makes a rude noise when I breathe. We'll go 50-50 on all we've got. Half of everything is yours. Half of everything is yours.
When I first started to work with him, and him having been such a big star to me in the past, and I was a relatively new guy sort of topping bills, and to think that he was kind of second top to me, I wondered if deep down there might be any bit of, you know, resentment or anything. And I mentioned it to him one night over dinner. I said, do you ever feel anything, you know, that I should... And he said, don't be silly. He said, I'm at a stage in my life now. He said, if I was on here on my own without you, I wouldn't have a lot of people in the theatre, but you're hot at the moment and you're filling the theatres. And he used to introduce me to people as his vocalist. Every time we went out, he used to say, have you met my vocalist? He used to say it in the hotel.
Everyone a little gem.
Arthur Askey could save a situation by ad-libbing. Only once, I can only remember once in my career on stage, missing out my cue. And I was in my dressing room and I suddenly heard at the tannoy on, Arthur was saying things like, oh, there he is. There comes my boy. Oh, no, he's just getting off the camel. No, there he is. And he was looking off stage saying, no, the camel's giving him trouble, but he'll be here in a moment, King. And I heard him ad-libbing about how I'm supposed to be getting off this camel. And oh, no, he's got his foot caught on the stirrup. Oh, no, he'll be here in a minute, King. It was incredible. And he went on for about 2 minutes. I mean, I felt awful, but I finally scrambled onto the stage. And he said, oh, there you are, my boy.
He could save a show. There's a marvellous moment in the 1972 Royal Variety performance when Teddy Pierrot was swinging this thing and he knocked something off Dickie Henderson's head, who was sitting there. And it went on for ages. And I thought to myself when I watched it, this is going on too long. And then on walked Arthur Askey, not billed, and the place erupted with laughter.
Hello, Playmates. And I know.
And it erupted again with laughter when he said this brilliant line.
Now, this is where the show picks up.
Right.
Younger than springtime. No makeup, only polyfiller. What do you want me to do? Well, give us a leg up.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
And I just put this in my mouth.
In your mouth. That's right. Are we ready?
What a fool I am.
am.
All right. Ready?
I said to Arthur, how did you have the courage, the audacity to do that in front of all? He said, do you know, Doddy, he said, I've never been nervous in my life. I said, you've never been, no, he said, of all the shows I've ever done, I've never been nervous. He said, he's never had the shakes, he's never had butterfly, he's never had stage fright. And I've never heard anybody say that, ever.
He was not a man of modesty. And nor would it have suited him at all. And that's not a criticism. I think a great many performers require that overweening arrogance that sometimes drives them onto the stage and enables them to deal with impossible situations. And Arthur became a star, remember, in the 30s. And if you became a star, you followed the other people who were fairly pompous and fairly self-important.
I once took part in a Royal Variety show, and we're all lined up on the Monday afternoon when you'd done the final dress rehearsal. About 5 o'clock, we'd done it, and the great producer, Mr. Robert Nesbitt, he very much in command. He comes down the stalls, leans on the orchestra and thank you, everybody. As you know, you all work very hard. Mr. Henderson will lead in 3 cheers for Her Majesty. Hip, hip, hurrah, hip, hurrah. Thank you very much for your patience and hard work, and good luck. And as he turned to go, now there's about 250 to 300 of the world's greatest entertainers on stage. This little man stepped out and had the cheek to say, Mr. Nesbitt, yes? He said, in your opinion, which one of us stood out? And the whole place collapsed. 300 people screaming, rolling on the floor. and he was the greatest offstage storyteller I have ever heard. He could tell you stories about the magician who was playing a week's variety somewhere and business was been terrible, so on the Tuesday he put posters all over the town. I will eat a man alive on Friday night.
Friday night, of course, there's always the drunk-in on a Friday night. So up staggered a fella. Now, he's got two of the chorus girls dressed as nurses. He's got a table with a sheet over it. He's got a wash hand stand that side and a writing desk this side. And he says to this fella, now, you understand that anything that happens to you is of your own will, your own free... Yes, I understand. He said, well, come and sign this document. So they take him to the writing desk. He signed his testament. It was his... What time the great Rodolfo was cleaning his teeth at the wash hand stand. Now, the girls take this fella's coat off and his shirt and his vest, so he's naked to the waist, lay him on the table, and this fella came over to him and he bit him here. You can imagine what it was like. Boom! And this fella jumped up and he said, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, my volunteer will not see it through.
When I was a little girl, I always had to wave goodbye to my dad. He was always going off on tour, and my mum used to stand me on a box or the kitchen table and say, there he is, darling, wave, wave. And I thought it was his name. So I called him Wave, and that stuck all our relationship for all his life. He was Wave, never Dad.
They all call me Arthur. Hello, look who's here.
Good night, Miss Askey.
Hello, Dickie. How are you, Dickie?
Hello.
All right, Dickie.
Long time no see.
Yeah, nice to see you, Dickie.
You well?
Fine. You all right?
Yes. You will excuse us, won't you?
Yes.
All right, Dickie.
Who was that?
I don't know. I thought he was a relation of yours.
I got in the lift one day in this hotel, and a fella got in, and he looked at me and he said, Arthur. I said, yes. He said, I bet everyone calls you that, don't they? I said, yes. He said, well, yeah, I like him, you know. I said, I know, I've been told that before. He said, mind you, he's getting on a bit now. He must be 70. I said, I think he's more than that. He said, is he? He wears well, doesn't he? And anyway, he got out the lift, and that was that. Now, the following day, this is quite true, I assure you. Following day, the same thing happened. He got in the lift again. He looked at me and he said, Arthur. Well, I thought he knows who I am now. He said, here, I hear he was in the hotel yesterday. A pity we missed him, isn't it? So, when the lift hit the ground floor, I couldn't resist it. I said, well, as a matter of fact, playmates, I am Arthur Askey. He said, I bet you wish you were.
You are Arthur Askey? That's right. Prove it.
And everybody gave a gasp when he walked on, you know, on stage, and he would say, it's all right, you're not being diddled, this is all there is.
When we did this show down in Torquay, we were staying at the big hotel, the Imperial Hotel. And on the first night, we did the opening night of the show. And this wonderful sense of humour of his again, I used to bring my car down. I said, don't take your car, come down with me and I'll drop you back up and we'll have supper together in the hotel. So we went back up. When we got to the door, there was an old retainer who stood at the door in the uniform, you see. And he said, good evening, gentlemen. Good night, good opening night. And I said, yeah, went very well, thank you. And he said to Arthur, go well tonight, sir? And Arthur went, pardon? And he said, did the show go well tonight? Sorry, I can't hear you. He said, it's the applause when I come down in the finale. He said, I can't hear for an hour at least after. Couldn't you hear it up here? He said. Now, I mean, we were about a quarter of a mile from the hotel, and the fella said, oh, no, he said, you couldn't hear it up here, Mr. Askey. He was dead serious. He was lovely.
He used to tootle around in that little Morris Minor, pale blue Morris Minor. I've got a Rolls Royce, you know. Don't bother with it. As long as you've got it, you don't need it. And relentlessly drive that Mini Minor. Park it outside the Playhouse down on the embankment there. I think you're not allowed to park there, Arthur. Tell them it's me. Tell them it's me. And that's all you had to do if a policeman did come along. It's Mr. Askey's. Ow.
When I came into show business, I looked on it just the same as going to the office. I clock on, or as I used to at the office, sign the sign book, the time book, not always truthfully, but I used to sign it and do my job. 5 o'clock came, knock off, sign the time book, go home. In a theatre, I do the same thing. I clock on, do my job, clock off, and go home.
To go to all the late night clubs or belong to all these theatrical societies, which is an excuse to get away from the wife in most cases, I don't go with it at all. For me, home and the theatre.
Unfortunately, my mother got Alzheimer's when she was very young, and it's a dreadful disease. And it virtually destroyed my dad.
Well, he never showed it, of course, but I knew he must have been down. He was under great stress. Because, you know, she was ill and she was a little bit sort of unpredictable, and he used to worry about her all the time. And I mean, he loved her to death, you know, and it was such a sad thing for him when you see him going on there at night and, you know, hello playmates and all the bits, and knowing that he had that worry on his mind.
Well, it took its toll. He got diabetes, and that is what led to the blood supply not going through his body, which led to him having to lose his legs, and it was devastating. I saw him at his absolute blackest then, and it was a nightmare. He was funny. The little man came from the place that provides false legs, and he walked in, and it's an awkward situation. It must have been very awkward for this man, and he was very polite, and he said, "Oh, Mr. Askey, I've come to fit your legs." And Dad said, "Well, you can put the tape measure away. I'm a 6 7/8", which eased the tension. You know.
Well, it's the old jokes, folks.
Well, Dickie Henderson was my main rock at that time. Dickie was also my dad's best friend.
One of those jokes you have not.
You're looking frisky and perky.
I should think so, too. Haven't you heard the news?
No.
Read that telegram. Stanley.
Congratulations, Arthur, on becoming the father of triplets. Stinker. That's fantastic.
Isn't it?
You must be very happy.
Oh, I am.
Why don't you sing a little song?
Oh, I can't sing.
Oh, you can't sing?
No.
Well, give us a little dance.
I can't dance either.
You can't sing, you can't dance? What can you do?
I mean, everyone was wonderful. And wherever I went, touring after he died, stage doorkeepers would always be lovely to me. I was so lucky, because they'd always say, "Oh, we loved your dad here. What a lovely man."
You know, you wanted to pick him up and put him in your pocket, really.
Am I popular?
Well, I'll tell you what, he so loved the public, you know. He used to stand there and chat to them, and he just didn't do it, you know, as a mannered thing, you know. He loved them.
He used to say, "I've never died. I've been critically ill." But I don't think he was even critically ill. I think he always pleased the crowd. Always. He was a crowd pleaser by nature, went right through to the bone.
He was speaking on a wavelength that appealed to mothers and fathers and aunties and uncles and children. In other words, the family audience. A great inspiration to any entertainer. We need more Arthur Askeys.
I was born in a basket of dirty tights at a broken-down theatre in Crewe. My dad was a red-nosed comedian. My mother was Danny LaRue.
And there are very few people who can say they have entertained and been household names to 4 generations. And I don't think it's a thing that we shall see a lot happening in the future. But Arthur was there, and if he'd lived, he could probably have got a 5th in.
Well, there you are, playmates. I've got my top hat. I've got my cane. All I need now is my shadow. Wrong hat. Wrong hat. Me and my shadow strolling down the avenue. Me and my shadow, not the soul, my soul. And when it's 12 o'clock
forgotten him. We remained very close friends right to the very end. He is really the only comedian on and off stage that there has ever been in this country. He was the foremost because he had a wonderful, charming smile, and he was always happy. You could see a happy face, and that's what the audiences love.
I think if he was a stick of rock, he'd have laughter right down all the way through.
Nothing in it. Genius.